Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. Uh, this is another session by Chandigarh Literary Society. CLS has been organizing sessions since the last 3 months. We have been having authors on our show, CLS Conversations. And today we have with us Dr. Janki Santoke, who is the author of How Do You Know What You Know? So, before we have Dr. Janki and Mr. Vivek Atray on the screen, I would just like to share with you that Dr. Janki also organizes weekly classes, online classes, and I would just share the schedule with you here. So, here we go. This is the schedule for Dr. Janki's weekly online classes. As you can see, it's 1 hour each on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can get more details about these sessions and other things on the Facebook page of How Do You Know What You Know. We also have the YouTube page here with the name Team Janki Santok. We also have the website here, janki.santok.com, and you can find the Facebook, YouTube page, and also the app on Play Store using this website. So please do check this out. Check this website out, and you can also log into Dr. Janki's online classes. So now we can have with us Mr. Vivek Atray and Dr. Janki, who are the speakers for today. And over to you, Vivek, sir.
Thank you, Anshuman. Thank you very much. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Janki Sandhu.
Thank you.
Thank you
Pleasure
for
to be
joining
here.
us. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. This is a part of Chandigarh Literary Society's conversation series where we invite eminent authors and they talk about their books and their thoughts on life and various aspects of life. So this is a privilege for me because you are such a renowned scholar of Vedant and you are also such a writer and you hold so many classes, workshops, you have traveled to so many places and so many thousands of people must have benefited from your teachings and your workshops. So I would like to first off start by asking you about a little bit about your early years and how you got into this path and this particular line that you are in, which is a very spiritual and very deep rooted kind of action related line of thought.
Uh, well, it's not been very complicated. I was a teenager, like all the other teenagers, quite confused about life, and I was wondering what is all this stuff. And I would ask my mother, and she would say, "Don't ask me," or "We never asked our parents so many questions." So then go ask whoever knows. So sort of that's how I started, and I was very sure about one thing. As a child, as a teenager, I was very sure about one thing, that this cannot be right. That we go to school, we go to college, we take up some occupation, we get married, we have children, and oh, great, we're hunky dory. Because I used to look at 40-year-olds and think, well, that's not where I want to be at 40. I mean, I'm confused. I know I'm confused, but I don't see them as being very clear either. So I didn't want that, but I didn't know what to do. I mean, what my options were, commerce or science or arts. So like it didn't make sense to me, any one of them. So I just picked one. I picked commerce, thinking, well, maybe I'll learn something there. And I had marks to go to a good college, so I just took it. So, but like I was sure this is wrong. And then I'd heard Swamiji once talk, my guru Swami Parthasarthi. He said, living is an art, a skill, a technique. It has to be learned and practiced. And when I heard that, I said, "Oh my God, somebody's saying this!" And so I was quite excited, and I was listening to his lectures, and that's what I was doing. I was just listening to his lectures. And then one day, I don't know, a jhatka got into me. I picked up the phone and phoned him up. I said, "I have a few questions to ask." And he said, "Do you want to join the academy?" I said, "No, what academy?" He said, I run an academy. There's a 3-year course in Vedanta. I said, "No, no, I don't want to join any academy. I just have a few questions for you." He said, "Okay, sure, come tomorrow." He's the kind of person, when you talk to him, he'll say, "Come today or come tomorrow." He never gives you an appointment like, much later. In fact, till today, he picks up his own phone. And, no matter how busy he is, he's got 4 full-time careers at the age of 93, but he does his stuff himself. Yeah, he plays cricket, he goes jogging. He's amazing. So I said, no, I don't want to join the academy. I just want to ask you a few questions. Well, by the weekend, I had joined the academy. So it was that simple, really. Nothing spectacular. And my mother said, "What, are you joining an ashram? Are you crazy? Like, who joins an ashram?" So I said, "No, no, I think I'm doing this." So well, that's what I did, and I've stuck like a leech till today. 3 decades
And the
have gone
rest,
by.
the rest, as they say, is history. And you've been so prolific in your writings and teaching. So obviously, Swamiji saw something which you could not at that time. But the very fact that you were curious, this is something which interests me a lot. Young people who are curious about life and the meaning of life and the bigger picture of life, if we can dive straight into this subject, but confused as to what it all means. And you very rightly said that if a 40-year-old does not look satiated, then what is it that I need to do in these, supposing I'm a 17-year-old, what am I going to do in these next few decades to get to where I should get? If I can just quote a youngster who said that when I was 17, I used to admire people with luxuries. And now I'm 30 something and I admire people with inner peace. So already that person is probably seeing the light somewhere. So, how do we remove this confusion in the youth?
Yeah, I mean, I can't suggest anything other than Vedanta, because what we need is knowledge. Really, that's all we need. Uh, because we happen to be born in this country, many good habits we have just sort of inherited, and many good ideas we have inherited, but we don't have a complete systematic knowledge of what life is about. I don't mean just in an esoteric sense, but on a daily basis. How do I deal with my relationships? How do I work in such a way that I'm productive in my work? People keep telling me I have long hours at work, I have long hours at work. It sounds like you're inefficient. Why are you saying you're spending long hours at work? Why would you do that? Life is not only work, life is so many things. So, we need to know what's the right way to work, what's the right way to have relationships. The condition of relationships today, I mean, as I live here, in Bombay, we live in these buildings, and these buildings are not very far away. But still, across the street from my house, I hear people shouting at each other in the family. Like, like, what's going on there? Why are they shouting? It's sometimes on the street. I live up high, I can hear them shouting. What are you shouting about? So we don't know how to deal with our relationships. We don't know how to deal with our work. We don't know how to deal with our finances. People make such obviously silly blunders, like during that these kids were doing very well in Dubai at one time, and then Dubai crashed, and they had bought all these fantastic mansions over there, and they basically came on the streets because of that, because nobody told them the very basics of this whole thing. They didn't know of the most simple Vedantic law. Life means change. Expect it. Like right now, look at the differences. I was going from place to place, pillar to post, getting on some plane, getting off some plane. And now I'm very comfortable now, because now I stay at home and do everything. And everything goes on fine. So, when we don't recognize that the possibility of change, we think the way it is the way it's going to be. So we need to understand how to deal with our finances, with our relationships, with our health. Like, they call it lifestyle ailments. So who's teaching us the lifestyle? What is the point of saying, oh, you have lifestyle ailments? Nobody told me what I was supposed to do. So in the academy which Swamiji runs, there's a full schedule from 4 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. And an important part of that schedule is daily yoga, daily jogging, and whatever sports, of course, you'd like to play instead of going for a jog. So it has to be inculcated that every day we do. It's not like when I fall ill, I'm going to look after my health. When the doctor tells me go for a walk, I'm going to start going for a walk. So we know how to deal with each thing that we have, that we are dealing with. And for that, we require knowledge, and that's the knowledge of Vedanta. So you have to learn this at the very beginning of life, so that you don't make mistakes and convert. Why? Avoid the mistakes. Generations before us have made those mistakes. Why do we need to repeat them? We can make fresh mistakes. We don't need to make the same mistakes. We can be do more creative mistakes. So,
Wonderful. A very refreshing style of looking at things. And it's absolutely very, very inspiring to listen to you. I must dive straight into your book now. How do you know what you know? Is a wonderful title in itself. Sets you thinking, and you talk about thinking persons who should read this book. Everybody potentially is a thinking person, but then everybody is on this treadmill, as you said, and everybody is running to goals which are not evident, and we don't even consider the meaning of life, our existence, and the fact that, as you said, change is the only constant. So, what is this that in your book, what is the premise, and how can we get people to think a little more deeply about life and the bigger picture?
the basic premise of the book is that we all have so many thoughts in our head, but we have never examined these thoughts. Now, why we need to examine these thoughts is based on these thoughts that we have, we're doing whatever we do. And based on whatever we do, we get results. So we are quite surprised. Oh, ये कैसे हुआ? वो कैसे हुआ? वो कैसे हुआ means what? That's what you did. So that's what you got. And why did you do that? Because you were thinking like that. So just as we do Diwali cleaning, just as we make sure that everything around us is neat and clean, we have to do the same thing with our head, with our thoughts, because they are driving our life. And sometimes we have some kind of silly or regrettable thoughts, and then we start functioning on them and create a huge mess for ourselves and for others. And you see those messes reported in the newspapers. Every morning you get up and you can read how many people, based on how many thoughts, have gone and done what kind of things. And you may say that, well, we don't do those kind of things. Then we are fortunate, because it's only because of circumstances we didn't do them. Who knows that had we had those circumstances, we would have done those actions and our names would have been there. Therefore, there was a saying in English, there but for the grace of God, go I. So we would do those things. In fact, in small ways, we are doing them, we are headed there, because those thoughts have not been examined. So the premise of the book is our life is based on our thoughts. Why? Because our thoughts drive our actions. Our thoughts drive our actions drive results. So if you take care of your health, you do your normal, whatever, yoga, you're jogging, whatever, you'll be a healthy person. If you don't do that, you get lifestyle ailments. So your thoughts drive your actions drives your life. So we need to re-examine thoughts. Therefore, how do you know what you know? How are you so sure that whatever you know is correct?
Absolutely true. And you also come very quickly in the book to the point about moods and how feelings and sometimes we just feel low or bitter for no reason, and also sometimes somebody said something to us in 2010 and we are still muttering over it or pondering over it instead of letting go. So what is it that normal human beings, I mean, you are a scholar, I am a writer, okay, I also motivate people. What should a person who's doing a 9 to 7 job and right now sitting in front of a laptop, work from home, what should he do to get out of this moodiness and this rather, let's say, below average mode of existence in his mind?
Well, for them and for us too, because we have to always keep upgrading. So there's only one thing in life. As a human being, we are different from animals. We are superior to animals, let me say, by only one thing. In every other thing, they're better than us. The dog can smell better. He's more loyal. In
Run
every other thing,
faster.
they're better. Yeah, in everything, they're better than us. We score over them on one thing. So we better hold on to that thing. And that one thing is called our intellect. It is our thinking capacity. Now, this thinking capacity that we have is not developed. We are born with it, just as we are born with so many other things, with our bodies and our muscles and all. But we develop our bodies grow from that tiny thing, it has grown to this 6-footer. But our intellect, which was born with us, didn't ever grow. We never fed it, and it never grew. So it is now stunted. And because it is stunted, it cannot hold our mind. Now, these are two technical terms of Vedanta, so just let me define them.
Please, please.
Intellect is our capacity for reason, discrimination, judgment, logic. This is our intellect, buddhi in Sanskrit. And the other side, the mind, is the manas. Manas in Sanskrit. Not exactly mind of English, but manas, like man in Hindi, has our emotions, our likes and dislikes, our whims and fancies, things that we feel like, our moods, all this is in the mind. So we're constantly functioning on the man, on the heart, on the mind. So the mind has become nice, Dara Singh it's become. But the intellect, bichara, he has been ignored and he has no power. So this intellect now cannot rule the mind anymore. And because the mind is not being ruled by the intellect, because not being governed by the intellect, we start making mistakes because we are now doing things based on indiscriminate thought. Like, for instance, if there's a diabetic, you offer a diabetic a sweet, then the mind of the diabetic says, I like it, I want it. And the intellect of the diabetic will say, no, this is not for you now. And so if his mind is strong, he takes the sweet. If his intellect is strong, he refuses the sweet. And then his life will go according to whatever choice he has made at that time. So how do you deal with this issues of feeling down or taking decisions when it's not the right time, impulsive decisions, hasty decisions, is by developing the intellect. Now, how do you
Very true.
develop the intellect?
Very true. Very true. I would also like to bring in, you mentioned relationships. And relationships are obviously the result of our choices at times, and at times they are people who are in our families and we didn't have a choice whether they should have been or not. So the influence of relationships upon our minds and thoughts and upbringing for children is pretty strong, and the environment and the company. So
Mhm.
people are impacted by those. So what can be done if someone is in that kind of company which is not of good influence? And how can a young person or even an older person get above that and rise above and somehow declare himself or herself to be living in this thinking manner that you're talking
The first question we have to ask ourselves is, do I want to continue living here? Okay, so suppose I feel my spouse is not good company for me for whatever reason. Okay, then I have to examine that. Now, do I want to live with this person? So you may think, "Oh, my spouse has got like 4 irritating characteristics. But then the spouse has 6 good things which I'm happy about. So do I want to live or not want to live? This is my first question. Am I want to cohabit or not cohabit? Suppose you say, look, I know that the person has 4 negative qualities and 6 good qualities, and I have 6 bad qualities and 4 good qualities, then maybe I'm better off living here. I mean, like you can say, thank God for her negative qualities, otherwise she would have got a better spouse, right? So the reason I got her is because she has those negative qualities. So you can sort of analyze and find out whether you want to be there. If according to you you do want to be with the spouse, with the parent, with whoever, neighbor, whatever, then you have to learn the technique of how to deal with it. And if you decide, no, I don't want to be there, then leave. Who's stopping you? It's all our own choices. So if you want to leave, go right ahead, but think it through. Be sure you're not jumping from the frying pan into the fire. And if you decide to leave, make sure you're giving it your best to try how to do it. Now, how to live in a harmonious relationship is two very simple things, principally. They're simple in terms of a principle, but of course, you have to work on them. And the principle is this: the first principle is that in any relationship, we should try to be givers, not takers. Every time we try to have a relationship with somebody, we are only concerned with how that person makes me feel. But we don't really think about how we make that person feel. So all our attention, or often our attention, is me in the relationship. So to have a healthy relationship, you have to be able to be service oriented to the other person. So that's the first thing. And so that's the concept of duty that we have in India, that what is your duty to the person? Now, this can be misunderstood. It doesn't mean like, somebody is beating you up and then you think of your duty. Your duty, if somebody is beating you up, is to get the beating stopped. So we have to carefully understand this thing. So what service can I be? How can I help you? What can I do for you? Should be our first attitude in a relationship. And the second important attitude is that our intellect must be at play. Because if our intellect is not at play, even if you're trying to do good, you'll mess it up. In English, they say the path to hell is paved with good intentions. So intellect has to be at play. And one of the important things the intellect has to do in a relationship is assess the other person, understand what that other person is, and then, should I say, moderate your expectations on based on what the other person is, not on what you would like the other person to be. If you're dealing with a hot-tempered person, know that he's a hot-tempered person. Don't keep saying, how can he lose his temper? You just said he's hot-tempered. That means he loses his temper. So what he's saying, how can he lose his temper? That's what he does. Get used to it or leave. Decide what you want to do. But this is this person you're living with. So learn how to deal with it. So whatever it is, some women often complain and they say, oh, my husband doesn't speak to me. My husband doesn't speak to me. A constant complaint. So understand that this is a silent person. He doesn't know how to speak. He's never spoken to anybody in his life except to discuss maybe sport or something. So he doesn't know how to speak. He can't speak. So this is the person you're married to. Now you decide you want to be there or not. But if you are going to be there, don't spend the rest of your life grumbling about it, because this is the man you married. So then of course the question comes, but what about me? I want to talk. Yes, that is true. So talk to somebody who wants to talk to you. Don't talk to somebody who doesn't want to talk to you. There are hundreds and thousands and millions of people who would love to talk to you. Why do we have that funnel vision that only this person I must talk to? There are so many lonely people in the world who are waiting for you to come and talk to them. Talk to them. You'll be doing service. You will be feeling nice. Why have you to offload your talking interest on the one person in this world who doesn't want it? What that person would like, yeah. So do important things in a relationship principally. Now you have to figure all this out. So that's where the intellect comes. So first, the attitude of service. We always begin with an attitude of service. And two, using our intellect in that relationship. Not going crazy. Because a lot of the problems, especially in India, we are service oriented, largely speaking, but intellect is a little, we could do better on that.
Right. In fact, I want to also ask you, people who start thinking and then it's in your book as well, there is scope for mid-course correction. I mean, I start introspecting and I realize that, of course, nobody's perfect. I have these imperfections. How can I get out of them? A thinking person will improve, whereas a not thinking person will probably deteriorate even further. So, what is the way to do this mid-course correction, and how is important is introspection, regular introspection for that?
Yeah, it's very important. Without introspection, we can't do anything. We'll be like going mechanically from one thing to another. Only caution and introspection should be that we are not spending too much time thinking about ourselves. We should know that, okay, I'm doing this, I have my schedule, I'm doing this. And then I can check every 6 months or so, is this really taking me to where I want to go? So introspection is very important, but sometimes it deteriorates into a self-centered view of life, and that has to be avoided. But how do you do this? Of course, use your intellect. Think it through. What are you doing? If you keep encouraging a thought about yourself, it's like acid that's burning the system up. It'll make you so upset, so miserable. So it should not. The thought should not come back. Me. That's what kills us.
And the guilty feelings, etc.
Yeah.
If I talk about more points in your book, you also mention faith and surrender. Now,
Mm-hmm.
faith and surrender are obviously linked to each other. Some people have half of a faith in themselves, half a faith in the Almighty, and a little bit of faith in others. But surrender is a very higher objective to achieve. And so, how can we build that faith towards that almost level of surrender?
Yeah, we should begin by defining all these terms. So, firstly, what is faith and what is surrender? Faith is when you have analyzed something sufficiently, you have used your intellect sufficiently, and then you find that you can't think beyond this point. You make what they call a leap of faith. So, faith is what you have when your intellect cannot think beyond a certain point. So you recognize that, okay, this is it, I can't. Like, for instance, I have a stomach ache. So now I tried all my home remedies, ajwain khaya, ye khaya, wo khaya, fasting kiya, sab kuch kiya, but my stomach ache is still there. So now I figure I don't know how to deal with this. So now comes in the question of faith. So I have faith in a doctor who will know what to do. So where is reasoning coming in? In who I'm choosing to have faith in. Am I choosing a doctor who has some antecedents based on which I chose that person? Or koi bhi mila in the street, anybody I met on the street, I went and said, chalo batao mujhe kya karu. So when I do this kind of thing, when I've not applied my intellect before trusting somebody, this is called blind faith. And when I have applied myself before the faith begins, this is called true faith or faith. So sort of your intellect is the tarmac on which the plane of faith takes off. If
Very
you
well
don't have
said.
a proper tarmac, your plane is going to crash. So you've thought carefully who. Okay, so that's faith. I'm going to have faith in you. Surrender means I am going to do what you say, not what I say. Because people go to the doctor and say, okay, I have whatever, amoebiosis, and this is the medicine I should take. Well, if you know all that, why have you gone to the doctor? Don't waste his time and your time. So faith means I think you know something more than me. Surrender means now I'm going to do what you say because you know more than me. And where's my intellect playing? In choosing that person. So if your intellect is not played, then all of this is going to go wrong. So
Absolutely.
how do you, so surrender is simply the understanding that I will achieve my goal quicker with this person's help. I can't do this on my own, so I'm taking this person's help.
Absolutely. In fact, you also speak of manan, reflection, and processing of knowledge. And too much knowledge is without acting upon it or processing it is of no use. In fact, you even quote one of my favorite authors, Saul Bellow. People can lose their lives in libraries. They ought to be warned. So much of knowledge and intellect without really processing and applying it is counterproductive, isn't it?
Very counterproductive. We become like, we get some kind of intellectual diarrhea with it. We offload that knowledge on the first person we see. I mean, he may not even ask anything. We just start offloading. And it's very, very, what shall I say? You mess up your life with this collection of information. We talk of it as intellect versus intelligence. Intellect is your capacity of discrimination. Intelligence is all the knowledge that we have acquired from various sources. So I could have a PhD, so I would be intelligent, but that may not help me live my life at all because my knowledge doesn't, my information doesn't help me live my life. It is the digestion of information that helps me live my life. Like, for instance, Swamiji often gives this example. It's there in his book. He says, on a computer's hard drive, there may be the entire protocol of what to do when a fire starts. But if a fire does start, that computer is going to get burnt. This is what is called intelligence or this information collection. Knowledge, digested knowledge means you You have understood, and the test of understanding is what are you doing. So in philosophy, we say if you are not doing, you don't know. So what you're doing is what you really know. Anything else is nonsense. You don't know that.
Very
Like,
well said.
yeah, like, suppose I give you a rasmalai and there's cyanide in it. However much you love rasmalai, you're not going to eat it because if you know what cyanide is, you're not going to touch it. That, that's knowledge. That's digested knowledge. So intellect comes from digested knowledge, not from information.
I think the cow and the rumination that you have heard of, where the cow goes on chewing the cud and goes on ruminating over it, is what human beings do not do. We are into fast food, breakfast in 1 minute. Food as well as knowledge, as well as everything, is just superficial. So
Yes.
that's what we probably live in that play. But I'm going to dive into intuition now because you also talk about intuition and epiphany. So intuition, that sixth sense, so under discussed in humankind. Even today, CEOs will never talk about intuition in a board meeting, and only in ashrams or in some higher thinking places, perhaps intuition is discussed even. Whereas it plays such an important role in a human life. So would you like to elaborate?
Yes, intuition is an important thing, and it's very important we understand what intuition is and how does it come about. So, what is intuition? Intuition, in its essence, is only digested knowledge. What is happening in the case of whenever we are trying to solve a problem or anything, we analyze the problem, we think about it, we apply ourselves, and we understand that is the use of the intellect. Intuition is a faculty of the intellect, it's a part of the intellect, which has worked so fast that even the person doesn't know that this was applied. So intuition will be correct because it is so well digested that you have hit bullseye at the very first stroke because it's so well done. It's something like in the dark, you are walking in your house, you won't bump into things. But if you walk in somebody else's house in the dark, you bump into things. So
Yes.
why do you not bump into anything in it? That knowledge is very well digested. So often the question then arises that now I'm getting this feeling, this is what I call intuition, because the biggest problem is knowing whether it was intuition or not intuition. So many people have want to ask this question. Now I get this feeling that something. So how do I know whether it's intuition or not? There's of course a video on YouTube on this very topic, so you may want to look at it. But briefly, this is what it is. How do you know whether a thought that you just got is intuition or it's just your mind playing tricks on you? How would you know that? By going back to the definition of intuition, how does intuition come about? It comes about because you have digested that knowledge very well. So the question you have to ask yourself is there any possibility of my having digested knowledge in this? Suppose you wake up in the middle of the night and say, the horse called grandmother is going to win. Then you have to ask yourself this question. Is there possibility of my having some knowledge on this? Probably not. You probably don't know that. So that may not be intuition. This is just wild imagining of the mind. But when a doctor sees you and says, I think you should get checked for this disease, then that may be intuition because that is a path that he has trod so many times that now his intellect does this really fast. I mean, like a really good doctor. I don't know if you are familiar with, at least in olden times, doctors were so good in telling you what's wrong with you. Hardly have
Yeah.
you walked in to know what is wrong with you. So if it is your field, if it is something like a mother has intuition about the child because she has trod that path, mentally trod that path so much, she knows what's wrong. The infant cannot tell her what is wrong, but the mother knows what is wrong. Why? Because that path has been trod. She knows that. So that intuition is probably correct for a mother and an infant, for instance. Like, what's troubling the infant? Why is he crying? So if it is a thing that you're likely to have spent many years and many thoughts on, then it's likely to be intuition. But if it's just a random thing, okay, I think this number is going to win the lottery, then I wouldn't take that.
Very good. In fact, that leads us to deeper thought in your book, which you also mentioned. The Vedantic concept of knowledge says knowledge is absence of vasana or desire. True knowledge is the unfoldment of the self. All else is ignorance. And you speak of ultimate knowledge, and pure consciousness is the ultimate reality according to Vedanta. Now, if I talk of ultimate knowledge, pure consciousness, obviously God comes into the picture. And most of us go about life probably saying hi to him once in a while, but not really, having any relationship with him. So, how do we get deeper and into this ultimate knowledge and therefore in connection with the pure soul?
Uh, we have to understand as we begin all things with understanding what is God to begin with. Everybody has some concept of what God is. So Vedanta, Advaita, only says neti neti, not that. Whatever you think it is not that. Because God is the infinite. Our brains, our intellect, our capacities, physical, emotional, intellectual, they are all finite. There is no way that we can know what that ultimate reality is. You can call it God, you can call it Allah, you can call it Father in heaven, you can call it Brahman, you can call it Vishnu, you can call it Shiva. Whatever you call it, it's like saying X because you don't know what it is. The stupidest thing in the world is to fight over God because neither of the parties know what it is. What are you fighting over? So, what is God? So, God is something which is the enlivening factor within us. It is not what we see, it is what enables us to see. It is not what we feel, it is what enables us to feel. It is not what you think, it is what enables us to think. It is within us as the ultimate subject. Who I really am is that ultimate divine self. So I cannot know it because it is not something to be known. It is what I am most internally within me. The example they give in the scriptures to explain this idea, they say that tongs, the tongs with which they pick up coal or from the toaster, you take your toast out. So the tongs can hold everything, can hold every object. But the one thing those tongs can never hold is the hand that holds those tongs. So our senses can understand the objects of the world. Our mind can relate to the feelings of the world. Our intellect can relate to the thoughts of the world. But none of these can relate to the God because that transcendental divine reality is ourselves. It is the hands holding the tongue. So the tongues can never hold that. So that is what God is. It is the ultimate subject within us. Now, if it is me, if it is the most inherent me, when I say I'm actually referring to that. Not just in Vedanta, it's across. Even when Moses went to the mount and he got his instructions from from the Lord, he asked and he said, "Who shall I say gave me this thing, these commandments?" So the voice in the bush is supposed to have said, "I am that I am." That I am that you are using. I am that I am. God says, I am that I am in you. You say, I am a young person. The young person is not God. The I am is God. I am an intelligent person. The intelligence is not God. The I am is God. I am that I am. Now, if that I am, that inherent part of me, that my own real nature is that, why do I not know it? I don't know it because it is encrusted with desires. With vasanas is the technical term for it. Vasanas is is unmanifested desires. It's encrusted with desires. So what is true knowledge is when these desires, when these vasanas all go, you understand the ultimate reality of all things, yourself and everything around you. You understand everything is Brahman. So Removal of those desires is the unfoldment of the final truth. So if you really want to know everything, then that everything is beyond our intellect. It is when we remove all desires, remove all ignorance, then what ignorance in Vedanta is another word for vasana. When we remove that, then what remains is the ultimate reality, the ultimate truth. Now, the only catch in this is desires cannot be removed. Desires, you may try to remove desires, but desires cannot be removed. Wherever you run, the desire goes with you. So, for instance, there was a sage who told his student, the student told the sage, please, Maharaj, something I want to ask you. What? Just one thing, you are all powerful, you know so much. Just one thing I want from you. Okay, what do you want? He said, no, I'm losing hair. Can you give me some mantra by which, I'll get some hair? So he said, sure, I'll give you a mantra. And he told him the mantra. Now don't ask me the mantra. I don't know that mantra. But he said, here's a mantra. And then when the student was leaving, the sage told him, Acha, just one thing. I want to tell you one more thing. So the student came back and said, yeah, Maharaj, what is it? He said, see, it's a very powerful mantra. You have to say this every morning. First thing when you wake up, you must say it 30 times. Only one important thing is when you're saying it, don't think of a monkey. If you think of a monkey when you say it, the effect is gone. 30 times, no thought of monkey. So you can imagine what happened. Every time he thought of the mantra, the monkey would come.
Nothing but monkeys.
Nothing. So you can't escape your own desires. Where are you going to escape them? The more you I won't think of it, the more it's there. So Vedanta gives us three paths. Three paths because we have got three equipments. We have a body with which we do karma yoga, a mind with which we do bhakti yoga, and an intellect with which we do jnana yoga. So karma yoga means the simplest form of karma yoga is really belly up. Whenever you put other people before yourself, that's karma yoga. Bhakti yoga is love for the Lord, which translates as love for all beings. And the simplest thing in Bhakti Yoga is just recognizing how much we have received. Even as we sit down now today, all locked up at home, how much we have received, how much we should be grateful for. We have our 3 meals given to us. We are safe, secure with our families at home. I mean, there's so much for us to be grateful. When we are grateful, we're doing Bhakti Yoga. And Jnana Yoga, most people understand it as study of the scriptures and all that sort of thing. The most simplest thing of the most simple thing of Jnana Yoga is the simple line that Adi Shankaracharya has used to define it, which is Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. The Viveka, the discrimination on what is the Nitya Vastu and what is the Anitya Vastu. To know what is lasting and what is not lasting. So keeping ourselves focused on the lasting. Like suppose I have a fight with my brother. I have to ask myself the question, is the fight lasting or is my relationship with my brother lasting? Whatever according to you is the lasting factor, keep your focus on that. Is COVID lasting or is my life lasting? Well, let's not get carried away with COVID because there's going to be a long life even after this for most of us. There's going to be a long life. So let's keep our eyes on that life and what we can do now for that life instead of mulling over COVID and COVID and COVID like it's a Mahamantra for us nowadays. So how you remove desires is by yoga. Yoga means union. So karma yoga means uniting to that truth through action, which is like service related action, pele aap. Uniting to that truth within through emotion is bhakti yoga. Love for everybody, gratitude, all this is bhakti yoga. And uniting with knowledge means discriminating between what is permanent and what is passing. As we do this over a period of time, the desires within us reduce, and then you take up to meditation, and that unfolds.
Wonderfully well said. wonderful explanations. And actually, I'm glad you used the word Viveka also because I have to live up to my name. That's also very important. But you did now touch upon meditation, and my last question to you is going to be around that. And then I would later request you to summarize your thoughts. But basically, what should a practical, busy person who's got a job, got a home, a teacher who is taking online classes and then cooking in the kitchen, and she's got children and she wants to also uh, go deeper and give up these desires, what should she do in her life? I know you have online classes as well to balance your life and other things. What should a person do?
Well, the most important thing any human being can do is get up in the morning as early as you can and study your scripture. Whichever scripture you want, I'll recommend the book Vedanta Treatise written by my guru, because it has the entire knowledge of Vedanta from the beginning to the end. Now, when we say study, we have two important things have to be known. We have to study. Sorry, I'm sorry to tell you this. Most people don't like me at all for saying this, but the time for study is between 4 and 6 in the morning, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Okay, and that's called Brahma Muhurta. That is when the sattvic nature in us is predominant. So we use the best portion of us to do the most important task. So between 4 to 6, for as long as you would like, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, whatever you would like to do, study. And study also has a definition, as you must have seen. Everything has a definition. What is study? Study is 20% reading, 80% thinking, because we don't want to go through books. We want the book to go through us. So it's not about how many books you've read. You can spend your whole life with Vedanta treaties and you'll have read enough. All that you need to know to develop yourself can be in one book. You don't even need. You can pick up Gita, you can pick up any other book, the Dhammapada, the Bible, the Quran, any one of your choice. The reason I recommend Vedanta treaties is because it's a modern book written in modern language. All the other great texts say exactly the same thing, but we misunderstand them, unfortunately. They're written in old style, using words that are not used today, like, for instance, detachment. But people just misunderstand it to become indifference. So, it just gets misunderstood. People read the scripture and then say, okay, the scripture is saying kill everybody. I mean, you obviously haven't read this thing properly. So that's why I read a modern book written in modern ways, which will less chances. Of course, we will misunderstanding, but less chances of misunderstanding. So study means 20% reading, 80% thinking, because it is that reflection that converts the knowledge into me. And what will I do if some great soul writes some great book? So मैं क्या करूं? The thing is me and my life. So if I have to change my life, I'll have to think about each idea and individually take whichever idea I want and reject whichever idea I don't want and make that my own and live by that idea, which comes through digestion, not merely through saying, no, no, this is a very good idea, I will take it. No, think about it, think about it, think about it until without your knowing you're doing that thing. So it's become your digested knowledge. So what is morning study? It's the universal answer. And of course, to help you, there are so many things. There are online classes, there's a YouTube thing, there's so much. Swamiji has a e-learning program. There are so many ways to help you. But each person has to help themselves. Unfortunately, in self-development, however much we want people to be happy, to enjoy their lives, to be fulfilled, to be productive, can't do anything. Everybody either helps themselves or not. The buck stops here, nowhere else.
Wonderful, wonderfully well said. I really like the quote that you don't go through a book must go through you. Wonderful quotes all around and inspiring thoughts. I think we're coming to an end now of the session, and Anshuman, after a while, will show us slides of your details of your class. But maybe a last message for the reader, for the viewers, and also just talking about your classes. How does it feel to deliver these classes and the response? So wonderful thoughts, Dr. Janki. I really feel happy to have had this conversation with you. And I think these topics we have discussed are extremely, extremely important. So wonderfully well said. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it. The most important thing anybody can do is morning study. And to do morning study, if you require any assistance, please join us for the online classes. There, I'm sure Anshuman will show you the slide. Or if you don't want to take on systematic study, as of course the recommended thing is systematic study, but if you say, no, I can't take this up, then there's a YouTube channel, Team Janki Santoke. Listen to whichever topic you want. Listen to the intuition one if you like. Listen to what Ramayana means. But gain knowledge. One idea is enough for us to change our lives. One book we need to pull ourselves up. And these are our own ideas. They are not coming from anywhere outside. They're not even coming from my brains or any particular person's brains. These are traditional ideas of our own country. We have instinctive understanding of them because uh, we have the flavor of these ideas still there in the country. You still see it. You still see that sense of service. You still see the sense of duty. You still see all these wonderful things mixed, of course, with a lot of this, that, and the other. But you see the sparks still functioning, and they're functioning in our lives too. So it's a great opportunity for everyone to take the knowledge of Vedanta and take benefit of it. And we are there, of course, if you need us in any way.
Wonderful. What a wonderful session to have with Chandigarh Literary Society. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I must
Thank you
say,
so
Dr.
much.
Janki, apart from being such an intellect and such deep rooted thoughts which emanate from India's culture and philosophy, of course, and Vedanta, but you are also, if I may give you a compliment, a very cool person. And cool and calm is a wonderful way to be. Thank you very much. And over to Anshu.
Right. On behalf of Chandigarh Literary Society and all the viewers, I would like to thank Dr. Janki and Mr. Vivek Atray for this very, very thought-provoking conversation. As a 20-year-old, I have a lot of questions in my mind, and I'm sure there's a lot of introspection to do for me. So, as I mentioned earlier, also there is Dr. Janki takes online classes also, and I will be sharing the schedule with you now. So, as you can see on the screen now, Dr. Janki's weekly online classes are on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's 1 hour each on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Zoom. So you can tune into any of these classes whenever you want. If you want, you can also take a screenshot of this and follow up afterwards. For more details, you can also go ahead and check out the Facebook page of How Do You Know What You Know. This is the Facebook page right here in front of you. So you can go through this. And then we also have the YouTube channel as mentioned by Dr. Janki. So the channel's name is Team Janki Santoke. And here are all the videos. So you can go through these videos also. Then there is also a website called janki.santok.com, and you can see that there is an Android app on Google Play. Then there is YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter also mentioned here. So please feel free to go through these all these social media handles and to join Dr. Janki's classes also. And if you are someone who is a budding author, a published author, or someone who is interested in such conversations, Chandigarh Literary Society is open for memberships, and you may contact us on our Facebook page, and more details will be shared very soon. So thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, and we'll be back with another live session very soon. Thank you.